Hey, everybody, welcome to What's Up Wednesday. This week, I'd like to talk about a concept that I refer to as the power of no. And I mean no like the word no, N-O, and maybe a little perspective behind this. I'll never forget really the first time this concept was presented to me. I was sitting with a CEO of a very successful safety company, kind of asking him questions about his journey and how he got to the point where he was at the time. And he told me that their business changed when they began to say no. They had customers who would come to them and ask them to perform work, and usually it was very last minute and it set them up to fail. So eventually they started telling customers, no, sorry, we just can't make that happen. We will need to schedule, a year, 18 months out to make sure that we can be prepared for this work, and their business transformed or changed at that point. Now, when I think of no, oftentimes I think about using no as a negotiating tool. And when I say that, I believe that humans by nature tend to become very emotionally involved in decisions. Whether you're negotiating a new job, in business, if you're negotiating a contract, you get emotionally vested in the outcome, and therefore you have an inability to say no. When you look at a business decision from the standpoint of it being purely business and not emotional, and you're willing to say no and walk away, it completely changes the tone of that discussion or that negotiation. That's the power of no. And I think that many salespeople would probably agree with me that when you have the ability or when you're ready to say no, it opens doors that you didn't know existed before. Now, when we look at the power of no in our daily lives, and I think that's probably a really good way to apply this, we have to look at the world we're in today. We're in a world where we're getting bombarded with information. Our phones are going off. We're getting texts. We're getting phone calls. Our social media platforms and pages are being lit up. It's just constant bombardment of information. And obviously, we have things we need to get done. We have schedules, we have priorities, we have all of these things in our lives. And it's really, really easy to get distracted or interrupted. Now, when we look at those two items, distraction categories, whatever you want to call them, issues, one is distraction, one is interruption. And interruption can be one of, I think, a couple different types. One would be voluntary and one would be obligatory. So a voluntary interruption might be you're in your office and your phone rings and you look at it and you don't know who's calling. You don't recognize the number. You have a choice whether or not you're going to take that phone call and interrupt what you're doing, or whether you're going to let it go to voicemail and then deal with it later. Now, if your boss comes into the office and says, hey, I'd like to talk to you, that's more of an obligatory type of an interruption. That means that you must take that conversation. It's absolutely key because your boss is coming in, or even an employee who works for you. And then we have distractions. And I think that that's where the power of no becomes incredibly important for all of us. It's one thing when we're being interrupted by somebody else. It's another thing when we're interrupting our priorities and our schedule with this fear of missing out, this need to see if there's something that came in that's going to distract you from your schedule. I think this is why I've preached for so long that it's really important to have a schedule, get up the same time every day, have the same routine, get to your office, get to your workplace, have your routine of things that you do, and leave windows throughout the day where you can do those things, those screaming distractions, those things that are yelling at you saying, hey, there might be a new message, there might be a new post, there might be something important, there might be something that happened in the world that you're not aware of, and you want to know about those things. I think that those aren't going to go away, but learning to say no to them on an impulse and being able to schedule little periods of time in your day where you can focus on those things, I think is a really good, healthy habit. So think about that power of no. Think about it as a parent when you tell your child no, how powerful that can be. And start to make it part of your routine. I think as with anything, you have to get very comfortable using that word no or that approach no. And you have to practice it because it doesn't come naturally. We want to say yes all the time. And I think that the benefits of doing so are great and you'll see. So hopefully that's helpful. We'll see you next Wednesday.